Parliament of Hungary.
Ik ben Emma uit België.
Zdravo, jaz sem Bojan, idajam od Makedonije.
Sziasztok, Márk vagyok Magyarországról.
मेरा नाम ज़ैनब है और मैं पाकिस्तान से हूँ.
أنا حمد من قبل.
Me llamo Gabriela y soy de Perú.
America.
Canada.
Korea. Denmark.
Deutschland.
Sverige. Italy.
Portugal.
Israel.
Nederland.
Ethiopia.
India. To me, a third culture kid is a child that has lived for a substantial period of their life outside of their home of origin, where they were born, and that they have come to understand the world through a very different set of lenses than someone who is not a third culture kid. That they have their home of origin, which often is the culture of their parents. There is the current culture that they live in, and then the third culture is often the culture that's created in the community where they go to school.
Third culture kids are a special breed of kid. These are kids that have a very difficult time identifying with a place. And the difficulty of being a third culture kid is that you've been told that you're from America or you're from the Netherlands, yet you have spent 90 to 95% of your life outside of your country.
The experience of teaching students who come together from all over the world, it's unique, it's wonderful, and it's very hard to give up. It's very hard to go back to a classroom where the children have all been born in the same hospital and gone through the same kindergarten, and the mum and dads went to the same school. It's a different sort of culture when you're bringing together children from all over the world. As a group, they come with so much richness because they share so much about their life and culture that we don't get that from a book.
There are more multicultural experiences for children in an international school than a national school. The kinds of conversations that the kids themselves are having, whether it be socially or part of a group project, in a national school tend to be a little bit more narrow. And I also think it was my observation that the teachers in those national schools tend to be less diverse.
We have the opportunity with these kids to develop true global citizens. Students who are mobile, students who have not just a local or national view of where it is that they live and operate, but they really have a view that's way beyond their borders. So I work at the UN for kids.
The benefits of being a third culture family, and I think for both adults and for children, is this wonderful sense of kind of discovering the world, that the world is not an intimidating, frightening place. The world is not something that is threatening. And I think that families who don't have an opportunity to travel outside of their own country tend to see that the United States or Belgium or whatever is a safe little environment where the rest of the world is a big scary place. And I think that one of the things that happens with third culture kids is that they realize that that's not true.
Another great strength is experience with many people from many different cultures. And that is something that you can't buy, you can't invent. You can only grow through actual experience. And I think that third culture kids often tend to be people who are more accepting, more comfortable with difference. They are able to, in many ways, have learned to communicate a little bit more about themselves. They ask questions about other people and where they've been in ways that third culture kids, people who are not third culture kids, do not.
You see children experiencing behaviour difficulties, usually when they're either first arriving in a new school or when they're coming close to leaving. It's really interesting. The minute people know you're leaving, the minute you say you are leaving, I've seen it happen time and time again. People start to exclude you. And that really does happen. And I've done it to people who I know are leaving too. I don't form relationships anywhere near as quickly as I used to. You'll find in communities, the first question you'll ask someone is, how long have you been here? Because if a person says, well, I've been here for 3 years, you say, well, you're not going to be, what are you thinking, another 1, another 2? You're not going to, I don't invest in those relationships.
The link to their home country tends to weaken. I've seen that even with parents. They tend to have a very difficult time going back if they need to go back one day to their home country, and they experience what you call reverse culture shock.
Kids who come to these kinds of schools and live apart from their host countries, these kids are more in a bubble than other kids at other host country schools, for sure. And with that bubble comes delayed exposure to some of the social pressures that other kids might experience earlier on. There's not this same common vocabulary that exists in terms of cultural vocabulary, the social vocabulary that the kids in the host country are using. They're not quite up to speed with that, but also their experiences that they've had when they're out of school like this don't mirror those at home. So I think it's a struggle, but I think it's one worthy to have.
My name is Isabella Herbert. I am from Australia, and this is now my 4th year in Budapest.
My name is Catherine Diederich, and I've lived here most of my life. I was born in Vienna. I moved here when I was 2, but my parents are from America and Hungary and Germany, so it's been quite an interesting experience growing up.
I was born in Kenya, and then afterwards I moved around the world.
Well, I was born in California, and then we moved to Rhode Island, and then Massachusetts, and then China, and then here.
Probably my home is where I come from, Kenya. You know, Jakarta is home, Warrnambool is home in Australia, but also here is home now. So I have all these connections to all these places, but all these places have been home to me.
You learn to deal with a lot of different personalities and a lot of different cultures and just different attitudes and viewpoints. And I think that makes me an overall more tolerant person and more understanding when I'm trying to deal with problems or problem solving.
Well, you get to meet new people, experience new cultures, and it's actually really refreshing because you get a new perspective on life each time.
You lose a lot of friends. Well, you don't lose friends, but you move away from friends, and you have to adjust to a new country, and there's a lot of like culture shock, especially when you come to a new country. So
I don't blame my mom at all. I really think that this has been a great experience for me, especially with all the opportunities that have been given to me because of this and because of the school I'm going to.
They also sacrificed their life too, not only ours, and they try to make the move as easy as possible and as comfortable as possible.
I can't blame them because they've given me so many opportunities and so many advantages, but I can't thank them because there's a part of my childhood that won't be the same as other people, and I think that might have an effect on when I build relationships with people, because I don't think you can go as deep with someone when you only know them for a year, and I don't think you can get to know that person, and I think that builds barriers between human relationship and human interaction. So I can't blame them, and I can't thank them. I just have to accept what the situation is and just live like that. Actually, in the past maybe year or so, I've kind of started to blame them, I guess, because I don't exactly want to, keep living overseas, because I'd like to get a home and stay there, especially during high school. As a kid, it's kind of hard growing up, like always having your friends move. And it's true, we have social media and everything, but it's not the same. There's not that comfort of like, if something bad happens, you can just run over to your friend's house. I think that my parents, I think they did a pretty good job, but like as I said, I don't really want to necessarily, keep moving over and over to a different place in the world. So I get mad at them for that, but I think they're trying their best to have a good life for us. So. Despite what your parents are saying at home, most of the time you're spending at school, And even if someone's a different color, different religion, you get to know them as a person. You don't get to know them as that religion or that color. And even if your parents don't have the same viewpoints, I think this school offers you the time to actually know people for people and not what the color of their skin is or what religion they are.
I think in some ways being a third culture kid is very hard, and but I think there's upsides and downsides to it. Like, I think later in life maybe there'll be more advantages of being a third culture kid, but you have more experiences. But I think for people who like to stay in one place, it's better, not to be. So.
I think that there's a part of me that always wishes maybe, I could have grown up in Australia. I could have, seen my grandmother a lot more. And I do recommend it, but I only recommend it to those, who feel that, it's what they want to do, or if it's their parents' choice. I feel that everybody could do it. Everybody could have second or third homes, but I certainly do recommend it to a certain extent.
Recommend is a strong word. If you are a third culture kid, I wouldn't say go against it and hate your life. But if you're not a third culture kid, it's not a bad thing. I just say whatever your situation is, you should embrace it.
谢谢
Por assistir.
Esse documentaire i będziemy widzieć Ciebie.
Ergens op deze wereld.
Two tabs on your tongue. I heard the shepherds, I heard the sheep sleep. Now my own